Welcome to the module, Using Text Structure and Note-Taking to Make Meaning of Social Studies Content. We value your time and appreciate your active participation during this module. Here are a few suggested learning norms to make the most of your time. If possible, work in an environment with as few distractions so you can engage and reflect. Take notes and jot down ideas and questions as needed. And lastly, use this time wisely to ensure your professional learning with university instructors is productive. By the end of this module, participants will be able to identify strategies for teaching students how to use text structure, understand how to teach students effective note-taking skills, and implement graphic organizers for note-taking and social studies class. Here is our agenda for today's session. Types of text structures, using text structure to support comprehension, teaching note-taking, text structure, note-taking, and using graphic organizers in social studies class, and a reflection and summary. To begin, we will learn the different types of text structures. There are different types of text structures. They are cause and effect, problem and solution, chronological, sequence, and compare and contrast. We will now take a closer look at each structure. Cause and effect is the first text structure we will examine. Authors use cause and effect to show relationships between events, actions, or ideas, and to explain how one event or situation leads to another, highlighting the cause, the reason, and its resulting effect, the outcome. This structure is often found in scientific texts, history, or any analysis where the outcome of an event is explored. Sometimes readers are asked to consider multiple causes or multiple effects. This text structure is similar to basic cause and effect, but explores multiple causes for a single effect, or multiple effects resulting from a single cause. Authors use this structure when the topic involves complex relationships, such as in social science. The problem and solution structure presents an issue or challenge and then suggests a solution to that problem. The problem is introduced first, followed by one or more potential solutions. Authors use this structure when addressing issues, proposing remedies, or offering ways to solve specific problems, often in persuasive or instructional writing. In historical text, writers will often show a problem and the way in which it was resolved over time. Sequence is the text structure used when we are instructing someone on how to do something, necessary steps. This structure is sometimes called the process text structure and is used in recipes, how-to guides, and step-by-step instructions. The chronological text structures is often confused with the sequence text structure. However, they are different. Text that is structured chronologically presents information in a time-based sequence, discussing events that occurred at a specific time and often in a specific setting. Authors use this structure when they need to describe a series of events in the order in which they happened, such as historical narratives, biographies, or true stories. The compare and contrast text structure compares two or more items, highlighting their similarities and differences. It helps the readers understand how concepts, objects, or ideas are alike and how they are different. Authors use this structure when they want to explore differences and similarities between two subjects, often in academic texts, reviews, or essays where analysis is required. When teaching text structure, we should alert students to multiple indicators. Text structure is evident in the overall meaning of a passage, as well as in the details and keywords used by the author. Signal words or keywords and phrases indicate the organization of the text. Recognizing these signal words helps students follow the logic of the text and better understand how ideas are connected. The chart pictured here includes just some of the key words used, including cause and effect, because, therefore, as a result, problem and solution, problem, solution, issue, compare and contrast, similar, in contrast, on the other hand, sequence, first, next, finally, and chronological, before, after, during. Recognizing these helps students identify relationships between ideas. Let's do a quick check to see if you can identify the text structures in the following passages. When determining the text structure, pay attention to key words and the overall meaning of the passage. The Nile River was a vital part of daily life in ancient Egypt. However, every year the river would flood. Although the floods brought rich soil for farming, they could also destroy homes and crops. This was a big issue for the Egyptians, as it was hard to predict when the floods would come and how much damage they would cause. To solve this problem, the Egyptians built a system of canals and dikes to control the flooding. They also created a calendar to predict when the floods would happen, allowing them to plan their farming and protect their homes. This system helped them use the Nile's power in a safer, more controlled manner. When you have identified the text structure, press play to reveal it. This passage has a problem and solution text structure. We know this because the overall purpose is to explain the problem of the Nile River flooding. We also see key words such as however, solve, predict, and problem. Creating laws in the U.S. House of Representatives' most important job. All laws in the United States begin as bills. First, a representative writes a bill and gets other representatives to support it. Then, the bill is introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives and assigned a number. Next, the bill is read to all representatives, and the Speaker of the House sends the bill to one of the House standing committees. The bill is debated and changes are recommended. Once changes are made, the bill is voted on, and if it passes, it is sent to the Senate, where it goes through the same process. If the bill passes in the Senate, it is sent to the President for signature. Finally, the bill becomes a law. Pause the video to jot down what text structure you think this passage is. This passage has a sequential text structure. We see this in the way the author explains the steps over time that lead to a law being passed, but it does not include dates, so we can be sure this is not a chronological text structure. We also see key words such as first, then, next, and finally. Democracy and dictatorship are two different forms of government. In a democracy, power rests with the people, who can vote to elect leaders and participate in decision-making. Leaders are accountable to the people and can be replaced through elections. In contrast, a dictatorship is ruled by a single leader or a small group with total control, and citizens do not have the right to vote or influence government decisions. While democracies protect individual freedoms, dictatorships often limit freedoms and suppress opposition. These differences greatly affect how people live under each system. Pause the video to jot down what text structure you think this passage is. This text has a compare and contrast structure. Here we see that the overall purpose of the passage is to show the differences between democracy and a dictatorship. There are specific keywords indicating a contrast, such as in contrast, while, and differences.
Now let's explore how you can help students identify and use text structure to support comprehension.
Now, let's explore how you can help students identify and use text structure to support comprehension. Students can use graphic organizers to help capture their learning and create summaries aligned with the structure of text, which can later be used to share information or to explain their understanding of the text. For example, students can use a graphic organizer like the one shown to summarize the problem and solution in a passage by identifying the problem, the cause and effect of the problem, and then the solution. Deconstructing a passage in this way helps students clarify the important details and make connections between ideas. Titles of text sometimes give students clues of how the text will be structured. For example, titles like How Global Warming Leads to More Intense Hurricanes, The Impact of Deforestation on Biodiversity, and Why Exercise Reduces Stress tell students these texts will explain a cause such as global warming, deforestation, exercise, and its resulting effect, more hurricanes, loss of biodiversity, and reduced stress. These texts focus on the relationship between causes and their outcomes. When students know the structure of the text, they can predict how the text will be presented and the type of information that may be important to fully understanding the text. This prediction helps them stay engaged and focused on the material as they read and building comprehension. Instructors often assume that by middle and high school, students know how to effectively take notes. Unfortunately, that is not always true, as these skills are not intentionally taught as part of curriculum. Therefore, it's imperative in social studies or any subject that instructors teach and model effective note-taking skills. The act of taking notes, regardless of the subject area, should result in students deepening their understanding of the material, but often students do not take notes in a manner that accomplishes this. With little direction, students will work to record every single word being shared by the instructor as their form of note-taking. Unfortunately, this is a very passive form of taking notes, which relies on long-term memory and tends to require less effort, meaning that it's easy to write all the information down without initially remembering most of it. In addition, it's very easy for students to write down things that they actually don't understand. The best thing for students to do is to paraphrase the material or write it in their own words. As students think about the information that was presented to them in order to summarize it, they mentally work with the content more, which improves recall rates as it requires working memory and generally takes more effort. This ensures that students properly understand the material as they are taking notes. When students don't understand what is heard, they need to be taught and encouraged to ask questions so that the instructor can explain it in a different way with more details. Sometimes students worry about having too much to write and not being able to write everything they want to while also paying attention. Using abbreviations can help with this. Encourage them to create a key after note-taking in case they forget what the abbreviations or symbols represented. After taking the initial notes, it can also be helpful for students to review them and develop their own summary of the topic. Annotating the notes with more details, writing in new examples, and emphasizing key points allows them to review the material, think about it in an active way, and improve their notes while also increasing their memory of the material. One way of capturing notes using these methods is with a technique called Cornell Notes. Watch the following video and consider how you might teach and use this method of note-taking with your social studies students.
Cornell Notes are a helpful study tool in class, while reading a textbook, or when using online resources. Writing key information down as you learn will help you retain more. How do you use Cornell Notes in a variety of learning environments? You can modify the Cornell note-taking system to match your learning situation and needs. The Notes section is where you write down what the professor says and what she puts on the board, but you don't need to write down every word. Useful notes capture both the gist of what's being said and the important details. Using abbreviations and symbols can help you keep up. If you're learning from a video or online text, treat it just like class and write down the information you think you'll need to know. Different online resources have different options for taking notes. Find out what's available and what will work best for you. Students use the Q section for all kinds of questions and comments. Traditionally, the Q column of Cornell Notes is used after you take your notes. This is the place where students add questions that will help them remember or organize the material. Using the Q section idea for textbook reading can help you identify what you still need to study more. With many online textbooks, you can use a comments or notes feature that will allow you to do your notes and Q questions online, or just use regular paper. One of the best things about using Cornell Notes is that it gives you the opportunity to keep your brain active in several different ways. Some students find it helpful to use the Q and note columns simultaneously. Write down what you need to learn while you're thinking analytically at the same time. Some students find the standard Cornell Notes setup doesn't give them enough room, so they open their notebook to a new page for each class. They use the whole width of the page for their notes section and the back page of notes from the last class for their Q section. If you're given class slides ahead of time, you can just draw a line to make an area for regular notes and a Q area. Using the Q column for your questions while you are writing more factual notes in the notes section is a powerful learning tool. This kind of thinking can help you stay active during a lecture or class. The summary is the place where, if someone asks, "What did you learn today?" you can tell them in just a few sentences. The summary can be challenging, but don't skip it. The ability to go back and forth from details to the big picture will help you learn, and is a great skill to have for school, work, and life. Taking facts and distilling them into main ideas is a powerful learning tool. You're making your brain digest what the professor said, and you're transforming it into your own knowledge. Try to get to the summary soon after class, while the information is still fresh in your head. Looking back at your summary before the next class is a good way to see connections throughout the semester. You can use any part of the Cornell note-taking system, no matter how you're learning the material. Taking notes on the information helps you remember it better than just listening or reading. Asking yourself questions about what you are learning keeps your brain active and activates higher-level thinking, beyond just memorizing. It lets you apply, analyze, and evaluate what you are learning. Summarizing makes you go from details to the big picture. Try out Cornell Notes and learn what works for you.
Let's take a moment to reflect on how your social studies students can benefit from note-taking instruction. Pause the video to jot down your thoughts. Social studies content often includes chronological events, significant details, and factual information, like names, places, and dates. By teaching students effective note-taking skills, possibly through the Cornell Note system, they can capture this information in an organized fashion by paraphrasing what's most important and then summarizing the information into smaller chunks. Although Cornell Notes is an effective system, students can use a variety of graphic organizers that support effective note-taking and ultimately retention and comprehension. Students can take notes in a format that mirrors the structure of the text they are reading, making it easier to organize, retain, and comprehend the information read. Graphic organizers like concept maps, Venn diagrams, flowcharts, or timelines can help students visualize the relationships between ideas in a text. By organizing information visually, students can better understand how ideas in different parts of the text relate to each other. This is especially important in social studies, where it's important for students to understand relationships between events. Graphic organizers help students structure their notes in a way that mirrors the text's organization, making it easier to follow the logic of the content. By visually organizing information, students can see relationships between ideas, which helps them understand and retain the material more effectively. Breaking down complex information into categories, such as causes and effects or problem and solutions, allows students to focus on key ideas, making the material less overwhelming. Using graphic organizers for note-taking forces students to actively process the text, helping them engage with the material and draw connections as they go. It is important to note that students should be taught through modeling and gradual release how to create and use different graphic organizers for different purposes and structures. We'll start with a passage with the cause and effect text structure. The French Revolution started in 1789 due to widespread discontent over social inequity, economic hardship, and political corruption. The storming of the Bastille symbolized the people's anger and desire for change. This led to the rise of radical groups and ultimately the fall of the monarchy. The revolution spread ideas of liberty and equality across Europe. If a student struggled with comprehension and was given or created a graphic organizer like the one shown on the right, the student would know that they are looking for multiple ideas that are related to one idea, or multiple causes that lead to one effect. In this case, the French Revolution in 1789, storming of the Bastille, and the rise of radical groups led to the fall of the monarchy. A student could also create a cause and effect chart showing how social inequality, economic hardship, and political corruption led to the French Revolution. Students can use this organizer to take notes by categorizing key causes and their corresponding effects as they read. This helps them break down complex relationships and clearly identify what leads to what, making it easier to remember and summarize. Now let's look at an example of compare and contrast text structure. Ancient Greece and Rome were two of the most influential civilizations in history. Greece was known for its development of democracy, philosophy, and the arts, while Rome focused on building a vast empire and legal systems. Both civilizations valued education, but Greece played a greater emphasis on philosophy, whereas Rome's strength was in military and governance. A student could be given or instructed to create a T-chart like the one shown to alert them to look for similarities and differences between the two topics in the passage. In this case, ancient Greece and ancient Rome. A Venn diagram, which is made of two overlapping circles, could also be used to capture similarities and differences between two topics. Organizing their notes in this way helps students see the relationships between ideas and better understand how different concepts compare. Here is a text with a chronological structure. The American Revolution began in 1775 with the battles of Lexington and Concord. The conflict escalated, and by 1776, more colonies joined in the fight against British control. In 1781, the British Army surrendered at Yorktown, effectively ending the war. The Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783, officially recognizing the United States as an independent nation. Here, a student would organize notes by plotting different events on a timeline, matching the chronological text structure. Timelines can be drawn or provided with place markers already added to the timeline, alerting a student to how many ordered events are included in the text. This scaffold can assist students in comprehending the passage. Students can use a timeline to record events in the order in which they occur, making it easy to track a series of ideas or actions. This helps students retain information about the orders of events, how events influence future events, and the impact of events over time. We will now examine a passage with a problem and solution structure in social studies. For many years, women in the United States were not allowed to vote. They were not treated equally to men when it came to making important decisions. To change this, women like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton began to organize and fight for their right to vote. After years of protests and efforts, the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920, granting women the right to vote. This was a major victory for women's rights and helps shape the future of the country. In this problem and solution passage, we see that the student has identified the problem, which is women were not allowed to vote. Then we see the solution, which ultimately was the passing of the 19th Amendment in 1920. Students can use this organizer to note the problems presented in the text and then write down the solutions that are proposed. This helps them separate issues from solutions, making it easier to focus on how problems are being addressed. Let's take a moment to reflect. How will you embed instruction on text structure into your social studies class to support students with comprehension? And how will you add note-taking instruction to your lesson plans to help students understand and retain information? Pause the video to record your thoughts and plans. Using text structure and note-taking in social studies helps students successfully understand content and retain information. Let's summarize what we've learned. Types of text structures include cause and effect, problem and solution, chronological, sequence, and compare and contrast. Signal words or keywords and phrases need to be taught as indicators of text structures, such as first, next, last for sequence, or similarly on the other hand, or however for compare and contrast. Graphic organizers help capture learning and create summaries aligned with the structure of the text. And note-taking skills need to be taught and include paraphrasing, summarizing, and questioning as needed. We hope you enjoyed this module on using text structure and note-taking to make meaning of social studies content. Please complete the Check for Understanding and the survey included in the Google Classroom. Thank you, and we look forward to providing continued support for your professional growth at University Instructors.